Every winter, 3.6 million drivers in Germany call roadside assistance. And according to the ADAC, Germany's largest automobile club, almost 45% of those breakdowns come down to one thing: the battery. Not the engine, not the transmission, not the tires, the battery. Nearly half of all breakdowns on German roads happen because someone's 12-volt starter battery could not handle the cold. And here is what kills me. Most of those batteries were not actually dead. They were sleeping. The cold put them into a chemical coma, and the owners did the worst possible thing you can do in that situation. They kept cranking the key until they drained whatever life was left. Then they called for a tow. Or they bought a new $250 battery they did not need. I have been working on cars for over 2 decades, and every January I watch the same thing happen. Good batteries, perfectly healthy batteries, getting thrown in the recycling bin because people do not understand what the cold actually does to them. Meanwhile, mechanics in Germany, where winter temperatures regularly plunge well below freezing, and people daily drive Autobahn-tuned machines with complex electrical systems, have been using a specific set of techniques to bring these batteries back for years. Not gimmicks, not internet hacks involving aspirin tablets or baking soda. I am talking about a systematic, step-by-step method rooted in how lead-acid chemistry actually works in sub-zero temperatures. And once you understand it, you will never panic over a dead battery in winter again. Today, I am walking you through the entire German method, step by step. I am explaining the science behind why it works, giving you the exact tools you need, and telling you about the one mistake at the end that ruins everything, even if you do the other steps perfectly. Let's get into it. First, you need to understand what cold actually does to your battery, because it is not what most people think. Your car battery is not like a water bottle that freezes solid. It is a chemical reactor. Inside that plastic box are lead plates submerged in a sulfuric acid solution called electrolyte. When you turn the key, a chemical reaction between the lead and the acid produces electrons. That flow of electrons is what cranks your engine. Here is the problem. Chemical reactions are temperature dependent. When the temperature drops, the molecules in that electrolyte slow down. They move sluggishly. The reaction that produces your starting power becomes weak and lazy. At 32 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 0 degrees Celsius, your battery has already lost about 35% of its cranking power. And it gets worse. At 0 degrees Fahrenheit, negative 18 degrees Celsius, your battery has lost close to 60% of its available power. So right when you need the most energy, because cold thickens your engine oil and makes the starter motor work harder, your battery is delivering the least. That is the winter trap. Your engine demands more, your battery delivers less, and that gap is where dead batteries come from. But here is what nobody tells you. In most cases, the battery is not damaged. The energy is still in there, locked behind sluggish chemistry. The plates are fine. The acid is fine. The battery just cannot access its own power because everything inside has slowed to a crawl. This is exactly what German mechanics understood decades ago while dealing with some of the harshest driving conditions in Europe. While American shops were handing out jump starts and selling replacement batteries, German workshops were focusing on one thing: warming the battery before asking it to work. That is step 1 of the German method. Warm the battery, not with a hairdryer, not with boiling water. Those will crack the case or warp the plates. I am talking about controlled, patient warming. If you can, remove the battery from the vehicle and bring it indoors. Set it in your garage, your basement, a room that is at least 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit, and then leave it alone for 2 to 4 hours. That is it. You are letting the electrolyte warm up gradually so the chemical reaction can resume at something close to normal efficiency. If you cannot remove the battery, And I understand that on some modern German cars, it is buried under the trunk floor or wedged behind a fender. There is another option: a battery blanket. This is not some gimmick product. This is standard equipment for millions of European drivers. A battery blanket wraps around the battery case and uses either thermal insulation to trap residual engine heat or a low-wattage electric heating element that plugs into a standard outlet. In Germany, you will see cars parked outside apartment buildings in Munich and Hamburg with extension cords running to their engine bays. That is not a block heater for the engine. That is a battery warmer. They cost between $25 and $60, and they keep the battery above the critical temperature threshold where chemistry starts to fail. The ADAC has been recommending battery blankets and warmers for years, and Varta, which is Germany's most trusted battery manufacturer and the #1 original equipment supplier for European automakers, specifically advises keeping your battery above 50 degrees Fahrenheit for optimal cold start performance. If you do nothing else from this video, buy a battery blanket. It is the single cheapest insurance against a winter no start. Now, step 2. And this is where most people skip ahead and ruin everything. Before you charge, before you jump, before you do anything electrical, you clean the terminals. I cannot stress this enough. Corrosion on battery terminals is invisible resistance. It is like trying to drink a milkshake through a coffee stirrer. The power is there, but it cannot flow. Take a wire brush, the kind with a circular head designed for battery posts, and scrub both the positive and negative terminals until you see bright, shiny lead. Then clean the cable clamps the same way. If you see white, green, or blue powdery buildup, that is sulfate corrosion, and it is actively blocking current flow. A paste of baking soda and water will neutralize it. Wipe it clean, dry it off, reconnect the cables, and tighten them. German workshops do this as standard practice at every winter service inspection, and it is the #1 free fix for slow cranking that I see overlooked in American shops constantly. Here is a real example. Last February, a buddy of mine called me from his driveway. His 2019 Volkswagen Atlas would not turn over. It was -8 degrees Fahrenheit outside. He had already called for a tow and was convinced the battery was toast. I told him to cancel the tow truck and give me 20 minutes. When I got there, I popped the hood and immediately saw the problem. Both terminals had a thick layer of greenish-white corrosion. The battery was a Varta AGM, less than 3 years old. There was nothing wrong with it. I cleaned the terminals with a wire brush, retightened the clamps, and the engine fired on the first crank. That tow truck would have cost him $125. The battery replacement the dealer would have sold him would have been $340. Total cost of the actual fix, $0 and 8 minutes of my time. Step 3 is the heart of the method, the slow charge. This is what separates the German approach from the typical American response to a dead battery. In the States, the instinct is to jump-start the car and let the alternator recharge the battery while you drive. The Germans think this is insane, and honestly, they are right. Here is why. When you jump-start a deeply discharged battery in freezing temperatures, you are forcing massive current through a battery that is cold and chemically sluggish. The alternator then tries to slam charge it at 14 volts while you drive. That rapid charging generates heat unevenly across the plates, which accelerates a process called sulfation. Sulfation is when lead sulfate crystals form on the battery plates and harden. Small crystals are normal and reversible during a proper charge cycle, but hard crystallized sulfation is permanent damage. It reduces the battery's ability to hold a charge, and it is the #1 reason batteries die prematurely. The German method uses a low-amperage smart charger instead. Specifically, you want a charger that can deliver 2 amps or less in a multi-stage charging algorithm. In Germany, the go-to brands are C-Tech and Varta's own line of intelligent chargers. These chargers do something brilliant. They analyze the battery's condition before they even start pushing current. They check the voltage, they assess the internal resistance, and they determine if sulfation is present. If it is, they enter a desulfation mode first, which sends carefully controlled high-frequency pulses through the plates to break apart those hardened sulfate crystals. Then they transition into a slow, bulk charge, followed by an absorption phase where voltage is held steady while current tapers off, and finally a float maintenance phase that keeps the battery at optimal charge without overloading it. This is not a 30-minute process. A deeply discharged battery needs from 24 to 36 hours on a slow charger at 2 amps to fully recover. And that patience is the key. You cannot rush lead-acid chemistry. The slow, steady current gives the sulfate crystals time to dissolve back into the electrolyte properly. The plates get evenly restored. The acid concentration rebalances throughout the cells. When it is done, you have a battery that is not just charged, but chemically reconditioned. Let me give you the numbers. A quality multi-stage smart charger costs $60 to $120. A new car battery costs $150 to $350 depending on the vehicle. If the slow charge method saves you even one unnecessary battery replacement, it has paid for itself twice over. And in my experience, it saves far more than one. I have personally brought back batteries that tested completely dead, below 10 volts, that owners were ready to throw in the trash, put them on a slow charger for 48 hours, and they came back to 12.6 volts and held under load testing. Not every time, but probably 6 or 7 out of every 10 attempts. Step 4 is verification, and this is where the German engineering mindset really shines. They do not guess, they test. After the slow charge is complete, remove the battery from the charger and let it rest for at least 2 hours. This is called the open circuit rest period, and it lets the voltage stabilize to its true state. Then check the voltage with a basic multimeter. You are looking for 12.6 to 12.8 volts. That is a fully charged, healthy battery. If it is reading 12.4, it is about 75% charged. If it is below 12.2, you may need another charge cycle, or the battery may have internal damage beyond what the charger can repair. But voltage alone does not tell the whole story. This is why German workshops use a conductance tester or a carbon pile load tester. A load test applies a heavy draw to the battery, simulating the actual demand of a starter motor, and measures how well the battery maintains voltage under stress. If the voltage drops below 9.6 volts during a 15-second load test at half the battery's cold cranking amp rating, the battery is done. No amount of charging will fix it. Internal plate damage, shorted cells, or severe, irreversible sulfation has taken over. At that point, and only at that point, replace the battery. Here is the critical detail. Most auto parts stores will do a load test for free, but most of them use a simple pass-fail tester that does not give you the full picture. If possible, find a shop that uses a Midtronics or a Bosch BAT tester. These are the standard diagnostic tools in German workshops, and they provide a detailed readout of the battery's state of health, state of charge, and internal resistance. That data tells you whether the battery is worth keeping or truly needs replacing. Now here is step 5, and it is the one nobody talks about because it is not exciting. It is the prevention protocol. German drivers, especially those in the colder northern regions near the Baltic coast and up into the Alps, do not wait for their battery to die. They maintain it year-round with a disciplined approach that would make most American car owners' heads spin. First, they drive for at least 30 minutes at highway speed at least once a week during winter. Short trips of 5 or 10 minutes are battery killers. The starter motor draws a massive burst of energy every time you start the car. If you only drive a few miles, the alternator never gets enough time to replace what was used during startup. Do that every day for a week in freezing weather, and you are slowly bleeding your battery dry. The ADAC specifically warns against this pattern and lists it as one of the top causes of winter breakdowns. Second, they turn off all electrical accessories before shutting off the engine. Heated seats, heated mirrors, the infotainment screen, the blower motor. Every one of these draws from the battery during startup. If they are all active when you start the car the next morning, the battery has to power them all simultaneously while trying to crank a cold engine. German drivers eliminate that parasitic load before they even leave the car. Third, and this is the big one, they put their battery on a maintenance charger when the car is parked for more than 2 or 3 days. Not a trickle charger from 1985 that just pushes constant voltage and can overcharge your battery. A modern, smart maintainer that monitors the battery's state and only sends current when needed. In Germany, leaving a CTEC or Varta maintainer connected over the winter is as normal as plugging in your phone at night. It costs pennies in electricity and adds years to the battery's life. Now, let me tell you about the one mistake I promised at the beginning that ruins everything, even if you do all 5 steps perfectly. I see this mistake all the time. People try to charge a frozen battery. If your battery has been sitting in sub-zero temperatures and it was already in a low state of charge, the electrolyte can actually freeze. Not at minus 76 degrees Fahrenheit like a fully charged battery would. But a deeply discharged battery can start to freeze at temperatures near 32 degrees Fahrenheit, right at the freezing point of water. And here is why. When the battery discharges, the sulfuric acid reacts with the lead plates and produces water. The more discharged the battery, the higher the water content in the electrolyte. Water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, so a dead battery in winter is essentially full of water that can turn to ice. If you try to charge a frozen battery, the ice inside will prevent the chemical reaction from occurring properly. The charging current has nowhere productive to go. It generates heat unevenly, which can crack the battery case, rupture the internal cells, or in a worst case, cause an explosion from trapped hydrogen gas. Before you connect any charger, inspect the battery case. If you see bulging, cracking, frost on the outside, or ice visible through the translucent casing, do not charge it. Bring it inside, let it thaw naturally at room temperature for 12 to 24 hours. Inspect it again for damage, and only then connect the slow charger. This is a non-negotiable safety step. Let me put this whole method into a quick summary for you. Step 1. Warm the battery above 50 degrees Fahrenheit, either by bringing it indoors or using a battery blanket. Step 2. Clean the terminals and cable clamps until they are bright and corrosion-free. Step 3. Connect a low amperage smart charger at 2 amps or less and let it run for 24 to 36 hours. Step 4. Rest the battery for 2 hours, then test with a multimeter and ideally a load tester to verify it is healthy. Step 5. Maintain the battery all winter with regular driving, load management, and a smart maintainer during extended parking. That is it. That is the method that German mechanics and the ADAC have been using while the rest of the world throws perfectly good batteries in the trash every January. No magic solutions, no internet hacks, just an understanding of how lead acid chemistry works in the cold, and the patience to let science do its job. The average driver replaces their car battery every 3 to 5 years. German drivers who follow this method regularly get 6, 7, sometimes 8 years out of the same battery. At $200 to $350 per battery, that is potentially an extra $700 saved over the life of a vehicle. Multiply that by every car you will ever own, and you are talking about real money. If this kind of straight talk is saving you money, hit subscribe. I have more videos coming on the stuff nobody tells you about keeping your car alive in extreme weather. Next time you wake up to a car that will not start on a freezing morning, you will know exactly what to do. And more importantly, you will know what not to do. Do not panic. Do not crank the key 15 times. Do not call for a tow you do not need. Be patient, be methodical, and let the battery warm up before you ask it to work. That is the German way, and it works. Take it or leave it. I will see you in the next one.